information out there. And, you know, I was going to work with Heidi on this.
It looks like Jamie's still going to be admitting a few people into the webinar, but for the sake of starting on time, I would like to go ahead and just get this party started because we've got a lot to cover today. And before we jump into the meat of the first CNP webinar of school year 22-23, I'd like to just take a moment to thank everyone for your time. We know that you guys are incredibly busy at the beginning of a school year, and we appreciate that you're taking time to join us for today's webinar, which is specifically focused on USDA foods. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of the CNP staff that are on the meeting this morning. They're here to hopefully provide some additional thoughts as they come to them and support. And please do not hesitate if you have any kind of questions. I believe that we likely have the chat feature available as well as the Q&A. So we'll want to make sure we leave some time for that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll cover first the agenda of today's meeting. So we're going to cover a little bit about the exchange. Most of you should be aware of the exchange, but I know there may be a few new people joining us today. So we'll kind of explain what the purpose of the exchange is. And then I want to cover some really important inventory management resources. Additionally, we're going to cover current product issues and what we are calling our excess entitlement plan. So please make sure if you need to take notes so that you can ask questions later. But again, we do have the chat and the question feature available for you. So let's go ahead and jump into our first topic of the exchange. And I wanted to share a little bit about what the exchange is, but also some changes many of you that are familiar with the exchange may be seeing this year. So the state distributing agency in years past have essentially just allowed folks to go onto the exchange and claim product, and we haven't reviewed those claims. We've just made the redistributions, and because of some of the issues we've seen in the past, I personally felt like it was time that we take a little bit of oversight on that particular resource. So on the exchange this year, you'll see that there are 4 tabs available. There is a school year 22-23 bonus tab, which has 4 bonus products. Bonus products mean that you do not have to have available entitlement to claim those products. There are also about twice as many direct delivery products on the school year 22-23 surplus tab. There were a significant amount, but many have already been, the maximum amount of the truckload have been claimed, but I believe there's still about 15 products on that surplus tab. On the surplus tab, when products are claimed, the state agency does impact available entitlement. And I want to be really clear what that means. Yes, we will impact your entitlement, but we will not deny a claim. We won't go check for entitlement first. So know that a claim on the surplus will not be denied simply because a school district has already spent their entitlement. There are also approximately 15 direct delivery products on the school year 22-23 CCC tab. The CCC tab represents more bonus product that the state bought with funds that were provided by Congress. And of course, we do have some available raw bulk material pounds on the school year 22-23 sweeps tab. So as far as the oversight is concerned, our implementation is a more hands-on approach. There are many factors that we're considering in this oversight process. Recipient agencies may go back onto the exchange and see in the state agency note column that notes have been added next to their claims. And some of those notes may say denied, or that the quantity of cases claimed were reduced. This practice is being fairly implemented. I want everyone to understand that this is not about one specific school district, but we do have historic information and we have access to reports. So we are trying to take an approach that covers the basics shown on this slide. First of all, we want to ensure that we have the capacity to enforce the 60-day dwell time policy. What we saw often in years past is schools would go on and claim hundreds of cases of product. And then at the end of the school year, that same district would say, oh, I want to surrender all this. I didn't need it after all. That is not good inventory practice, and it is not fair use of our resources for everyone else. So we want to make sure that we spread the wealth, that all districts have an opportunity to look at the exchange and take a fair and reasonable amount of the available product. Additionally, our process includes looking at product cancellations. What recipient agencies were actually impacted by a product cancellation and which were not. So if we see that a school district has gone on and claimed 100 cases of a fruit product, but they weren't impacted by the cancellation, their claim is likely going to get denied, especially if we see that the recipient agency had already previously claimed that product, but in a different delivery period, or if that recipient agency has existing requisitions on a posting that we have on the exchange on the same sales order. So we want to make sure that it is across the board. We're trying to meet the needs of everyone. And then also when it comes to sweeps, if you've noticed that your claim was denied, it's because as a recipient agency, you have pounds for those products to already use. And we need you to use your pounds first. What we've seen happen with the sweeps tab particularly is that schools will go on and claim thousands of pounds. And then at the end of the year, the state agency is sweeping thousands of pounds from the same school district. It is exhaustive to implement those types of practices, and it is not good inventory management oversight. So while this is new, it is going to continue in the future. So please just be aware when you place a claim, it behooves you to go back and see where that claim lies, because changes may have been made to your claims on the exchange. So with that, let's go ahead and move to the next topic, which is inventory management resources. There are lots of system reports that can be implemented that will help school districts and recipient agencies utilize successful best practices. So we're going to take a moment today to go over some specific reports. Now, WebSCM, because we do have so many new food service directors or potentially new food service directors that started at the end of last school year and aren't as aware of how these systems function, I do want to take a moment to cover those. So it's important to know that it takes 3 separate software systems to administer all the functionalities and practical applications of the USDA Foods program. That seems like a lot, but they all have a strategic place in the processes of the USDA Foods program. And it's important to understand the reporting capabilities for these systems because the reports will help recipient agencies successfully manage their USDA foods inventories. So first, let's cover the web-based supply chain management, commonly referred to as WebSCM. The WebSCM system is used by recipient agencies for entering requisitions, also known as requests or orders for USDA foods. Those requisitions are entered each year, typically at the end of February and early March. The foods that are requisitioned are brought into the state's warehouse for use during the school year following the requisitions. So when requisitions were entered in March 2022, those foods will be available for use in school year 22-23 meal service programs. This system is known as the system of record. It houses all the data pertaining to a recipient agency's available entitlement, how entitlement is allocated, what USDA foods were procured with that entitlement, and the status of the USDA foods over the course of the school year. So it's really important to understand how to utilize those reports. One thing that I want to let everyone know listening today, if you are fairly new to the programs, set yourself a task reminder to watch for broadcast emails and mark your calendar now so that you do not miss the critical opportunity of ordering foods in school year 23, or I'm sorry, in February and March of 2023 for school year 23-24. The catalog opens. It's open for a very short period of time and it closes promptly. There is no reopening that catalog. It is a hard set date. So mark yourself with some type of reminder for mid-February to be paying attention to WebSCM requisitions. So now let's cover just a bit about the Gold Star Foods Inventory Release Software System, commonly known as IRIS, Inventory Release Software System. This is the system that is used by recipient agencies to place orders for the delivery to their districts of all the USDA foods that were ordered in WebSCM that have been shipped from a USDA approved vendor to our designated warehouse location. So we have two warehouses, Northwest Distribution located in Emmett and Americold located in Nampa. But in order for the foods that were ordered through WebSCM to get to your school, you have to have a way of telling us, hey, I need 5 cans of green beans to come to my district and I need them by this date. And I need 10 chubs of beef to come to my school district. So that's the purpose of the inventory release software system. It's important to note that this system tracks monetary costs associated with the storage and delivery of your USDA foods. And for districts who have awarded a commercial bid to Gold Star Foods, the system is also used to place orders for commercially available products. So this is where it's really important to keep the frame of reference, whether you're talking about your USDA foods products or your commercial products. Oftentimes, the USDA foods team sees questions from folks about their commercial product. I can't help with that. I can only help with foods that were procured through the USDA foods program. Also, the fresh fruits and vegetables order receipt system, known as FAVORS. This system is only used by recipient agencies who make a choice to allocate a portion of their available entitlement to the USDA Foods DoD Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. We will shorten that and refer to it as DoD Fresh. The state agency issues a survey once a year, typically in March, following the input of requisitions into WebSCM, so that schools that plan for participation in DoD Fresh can set aside a part of their entitlement to allocate to the DoD Fresh program. This program can be thought of as a sub-program of the USDA Foods program. It allows recipient agencies to use the number 10 cans. The USDA Foods program allows number 10 cans, frozen fruits and vegetables, raw bulk materials, but money allocated to DoD allows a recipient agency to receive fresh produce, fresh lettuce, tomatoes, baby carrots, cucumbers. Any fresh produce can be ordered through DoD. This system tracks the available amount of entitlement allocated by a recipient agency to the program, the available balance of that entitlement over time, and tracks the cost of produce procured through the DoD Fresh program. So necessarily, there are reports for all of these particular systems. So let's talk a little bit more about access to systems. This is a no negotiation. Every individual who participates in the child nutrition program in some capacity must have their own access. So shared access to systems is not allowed. And why would that be? Because these systems are secure. These systems track who logged in, what they did, how they spent money, what foods were ordered. So please know that any system that is used to operate in the USDA Foods program requires individual access. They can be a little bit complicated, but let me explain to you how these systems function. First of all, WebSCM and Favors are USDA systems. They are monitored and maintained and housed by USDA. So those systems require what is called an e-authentication prior to being able to access the system. It's a way of USDA approving that you are not a risk person for accessing their systems. Please know that the WebSCM process for acquiring access is a multi-step process. Once a registration is started in WebSCM, which can be started by the state agency or another WebSCM authorized user, like a food service director who maybe has someone that they're going to have manage orders for USDA Foods, that food service director can set up another user to be authorized in WebSCM. When the setup is completed, the system will generate an email that goes to the user. The email is titled Action Required, Register USDA WebSCM User. That email oftentimes lands in either junk or spam. So if you anticipate receiving the email, check your junk or spam. It has very specific instructions that must be followed precisely. And what we often find is people say, it won't let me in, referring to WebSCM. That it will not let most people in because they didn't follow the steps and complete step 2, which requires accepting the terms of rules and behavior page. So if for some reason you find you can't get into WebSCM, you've received the email, go back and retrace your steps. You've missed a step. It's also important to understand, I can't make that happen for you. No one can. It is USDA's way of ensuring that if you are going to log into the system, you have accepted the terms of participation on this system. And like I said before, both WebSCM favors require that first step, e-authentication, but it's a shared e-authentication. So once it's been done, it does not have to happen again for access to favors. So that's really important to keep in mind. Now, access to the inventory release software system is actually completed by Gold Star Foods. They will provide login credentials. They will provide you with a username, which is typically your school associated email address. They will also provide a generic email or password, and then they will, when you log in with that generic password, you will be prompted to update your password to one that is important to you upon your first login. But keep in mind, nobody on our team has your usernames or passwords. So we can't help you if you lock yourself out. That's why it's important to know who administers these programs. The WebSCM feature actually has, hey, I forgot my login. If you forgot your login, click on it and you'll get assistance from USDA so that you can log into those. Now, when it comes to favors, the state distributing agency, that's me, Kat, and Pamela, and Lynda is part of our USDA Foods team. We are responsible for entering new users into favors. However, all we can do is initiate the process. And then we have to submit a request to USDA for final approval. Why is that? Because they need to confirm that there's an e-authentication in place, because again, it's a secure system. Although USDA can take up to approximately 30 days to approve the request, the timeline is typically much, much shorter than that. So the reason we want you to understand that is if you've never participated in DoD before and you want to participate in DoD, but you don't have access, it may take a little bit of time before you're able to go in and start spending funds that may have been allocated to the DoD Fresh program. So knowing all of that, let's go ahead and move into some specific system information. So we're going to cover WebSCM first, and we're going to talk about inventory and entitlement reports. The inventory and management reports are designed to give recipient agencies up-to-date information on the status of their estimated available entitlement, as well as USDA foods requisitions that were placed for foods for the school year. There are different reports that help meet these needs. The first report that I want to talk about is the Entitlement Bonus Summary Report. Just like the title says, it is essentially a one-line summary of a recipient's entitlement for any given period of time. So in the example on this slide, you can see that the program that we want to look at is the National School Lunch Program. That's where entitlement is generated. The program year is 2023. Note that program year refers to the last part of a school year. So this covers school year 22-23. This particular RA's beginning estimated entitlement was $35,773.87. That's how much money this recipient agency had to procure USDA foods back in March before they started entering requisitions. So what this particular RA chose to do is they chose to allocate $11,599 to the DoD Fresh program. So it shows on the summary report. And they spent approximately $16,159.11 on other USDA foods like direct delivery items, canned foods, and or raw bulk materials sent to a processor. And the reason that I use the word estimate, that is the current value, but every single piece of entitlement is always referred to as an estimate. And we're going to cover why in a moment. We'll also note that the entitlement balance listed here of $8,015.76 is an estimated balance. The reason everything in WebSCM is estimated because the USDA foods that were procured in March move through a process. Requisitions are entered, and when they're entered, there is an estimated cost associated with that food. Then USDA goes out to contract. If they award the contract and it's purchased, the food is actually purchased at fair market value. So the estimated price associated with the food when the requisition was placed is not and never will be the final price paid for the product. So if you think of that logically, if a school district has, let's just say they have orders placed for green beans and beef and frozen broccoli and peaches and pears, a plethora of products. Each one of those products, when they're purchased, changes the entitlement. So entitlement can change every single day. If I ran this same recipient agency's bonus summary report today, it could be different because maybe some of their products got purchased yesterday. So it's really important to know where you stand on a day-to-day basis. Now let's talk about the entitlement bonus detail report. This report shows specific details about each and every requisition that was entered in WebSCM for the given period of time. So essentially, if you were curious, you could go back and plug in and look at a report for 2022 and see what happened the year before, or program year 2021 and see what happened the year before that, or program year 2020 and the year before that. So this information lives in the system for all time. The location where each USDA Foods product was shipped is listed on the detail report. It provides material codes, product descriptions, sales order numbers that are assigned when a truckload of product is approved by your USDA Foods team. It shows the expected warehouse delivery date. It shows how many cases or pounds you as a recipient agency requested of that product. And it shows the status of each and every sales order. The status could be order received. That means that product on that line item is sitting in the warehouse waiting for delivery. It could say purchased. That means your entitlement has been impacted at the exact cost. The product is going to be available once it arrives at the warehouse. If it says canceled, that's not great news because you're not going to get your product. If it says approved by SDA, that means it's still sitting in the very beginning phases. All that's happened so far is that the USDA Foods team said, okay, we're going to submit this to USDA and let them start the process. So they are working on the entire contracting process. And if it says it's on invitation, that means that USDA has gone out to bid and they're waiting for responses on their bids. The bonus detail report, or the entitlement bonus detail report, also shows, again, estimated value of entitlement for each requisition entered. The only time the entitlement is solid is if it was purchased or the order has been received. But it's important to know that you have a basic number in mind for how much entitlement you will likely have at any given year. If your meal service numbers don't go up or down, they don't fluctuate a lot, this is going to be about how much entitlement you're going to have, with the exception of changes to the per meal rate. And you can look and see how much money did I use last year for fresh fruits and vegetables, if that's a program. You can look and see how much you spent on entitlement. And you can go back and look and see if you left money on the table, because that's really important. Entitlement, you don't get it. It doesn't roll over. If you don't spend it this year, you don't get it next year. It doesn't add to your plate next year. So we want you to understand that. You can also look at the last row of the entitlement bonus detail report. The very last row in the estimated entitlement column, it's going to show that $8,015.76 that's showing on your summary report. The reports align, they track with one another on a day-to-day basis. Please pay particular attention to products that were canceled as we move into more conversations on this webinar. The requisition status report shows very similar information as the entitlement bonus summary report, but of course it's more focused on helping a recipient agency know specifically the status of each requisition they entered into WebSCM back in March of 2022. Which USDA foods were ordered, when you should expect them to arrive at the warehouse, and where USDA is in the contracting process. So become familiar with these reports. My hope is that after this webinar, each one of you will go and try and download these reports if you've never done that before, so long as you have access to WebSCM. Also know that there is a WebSCM user guide available on the USDA Foods and Processing webpage. This user guide gives you step-by-step instructions on running these reports. So now let's move on to the inventory release software system. This particular system it's important to understand a couple of things about what information lives in the inventory release software system. So let's cover what further processed products, if they are available, look like in your district versus what you may have purchased commercially. So on this particular slide, we're going to talk about the commodity pounds by manufacturer item report. That report, if you look at the little screenshot in the slide that has the red arrow pointing to it, this report lives on the dashboard. So when you log into inventory release software system, this information is present right on the dashboard, right up front, and it identifies all available pounds sent to a processor. So the overview of this report is that little screenshot. It shows that this RA sent 105 or 6, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, pounds to Smuckers. They sent 600 pounds to National Food Group. They sent 194 pounds to Tools for Schools, and they sent 2,991 pounds to Tyson. But unless you open the report, you don't know how much of what product was sent to National Food Group. You have a total of 600 pounds, but what is the product that was sent to National Food Group? Because they process 3 different products for us. So in the little graph on the bottom, you can see that I generated the report, exported it to Excel, and it shows me specifically that to JTM, oh, I'm sorry, I used 2 different screenshots. Sorry about that, because this screenshot was provided later in it. So don't align the pounds on the screenshot with my graph. I apologize for that. I should have caught that error. But let's pretend that rather than the saying JTM Food Group on the graph, it says JM Smucker. And then over on the manufacturer item product code right there, it would have the code for pork, which is 110194, I believe. And then it would say, oh, no, we're talking about Smucker. Okay. It would have the product code for the peanuts. And then in the item description, it would say the raw bulk material peanuts, and it would show pounds available 105 instead of this 45 that's on the screen. But we can still talk about this national food group example. In this example, rather than the screenshot showing 600 pounds, let's say it showed 312 pounds. What it would be referencing when you open the report is that National Food Group has a lot of pounds waiting for you. They have 150 pounds in apples, and they have 162 pounds in diced pears. But for my particular example, this RA did not send pounds of diced peaches to National Food Group. So what this RA cannot do is go into the ordering system and order the shelf-stable diced peach cups through National Food Group because they do not have pounds available to use. So what catches most people is this. The pounds for National Food Group apples, we don't care what variety you buy. You can buy cinnamon, you can buy strawberry, you can buy peach, or you can buy plain. It doesn't matter to us what you order with that 150 pounds of raw bulk material apples. But it does matter on some products specific, like pears. You can't order peach cups if you only have pears available. So you need to pay attention to what did I do when I requisitioned pounds? And here's what catches a lot of people too. We have people that will call and say, but I put it on my ordering spreadsheet. Okay, when planning took place, the state agency provides a spreadsheet to help you sort of figure out what your forecasting plan is. But that spreadsheet is just a plan. I don't see that plan. WebSCM doesn't see that plan. Only the recipient agency sees that plan. And only the portion of the plan that is actually enacted in WebSCM by placing requisitions matters at this point. So you may have thought you wanted to get pears and peaches sent to National Food Group, but maybe you didn't have enough entitlement left to do that. So you never placed the requisition for peaches, or maybe you just forgot. But if you didn't submit the requisition and the pounds aren't there, you don't get that product. However, this is where it can get a little bit complicated because many of our school districts have commercial bids with Gold Star. So maybe you can get those peach cups commercially from Gold Star, but don't try to enter an order for peach cups under further processed pounds if you don't have pounds available. So what am I trying to say? Pull the reports and know what you have. All right, so now let's move on to the next report in inventory release software system. It's called the USDA Live Inventory Report. So the previous report was all about further processing, pounds that are turned into raw bulk material pounds turned into end product. USDA Live Inventory Report identifies all the stored, meaning it's at the warehouse, direct delivery products These products are subject to the 60-day dwell time policy. You can generate this report every day so you know what's on hand. And if you notice here, when the report is generated, it tells us what date and exactly what time it was generated. It shows that currently this particular recipient agency has a whole bunch of products sitting at the warehouse, but they don't have anything placed on order. So they are under currently the 60-day dwell time policy. So how do we determine how to abide, is the term I'll use, to the 60-day dwell time policy? Well, your WebSCM reports told you when something was purchased, and they also told you the day an item was received. So you know that it's sitting at the warehouse. That's the expectation. You're paying attention to what's happening with WebSCM. The other really important thing, to just go back to WebSCM for a moment, WebSCM provides daily email notifications. So you don't have to go in and run these reports every single day. It will notify you when product that you requisitioned has been purchased, has been canceled, has changed status, or has been received at the warehouse. All you got to do is look at those. And then if something causes concern, go run a report, and then you'll know what exactly happened. But the 60-day dwell time starts when the product enters the warehouse. Now, we recognize that we only have once a month typically delivery. So if you know product arrived at the warehouse, let's just say all of the foods on this screen arrived August 15th, and you just simply haven't placed your first order for delivery. Okay, we would expect that hopefully you'll take about half of the product that's on hand for your first order, and then the second half, the remaining portions on your next delivery order that you place for September. So you have 60 days to be able to pull down all this inventory. We don't go in and timestamp everything. This is kind of an honor system, but why is it important? Because if this recipient agency leaves all this food here until March, and we have more truckloads arriving of flour and more truckloads of mixed berries and more truckloads of beef, and they stack on what they already have in inventory, they're not using first in, first out practices. First of all, we need them to use proper inventory management. First in needs to be first on order and out of the warehouse. And that's how our warehouse folks put this product into the warehouse. So if your product arrived, it's waiting for you to claim it. We need it moved out so the next truckload that arrives has room, and then we'll move out sequentially in those 60 days. So please just be cognizant of what you have, what you need to place on order, and how much is still available so you can plan for your next ordering cycle. So let's go ahead now and move on to the topic of the day, product issues. And so far, right? Because I'm sure most of you have seen some changes. If you're watching WebSCM generated notifications at all, you're seeing changes. So I wanted to cover a little bit about what do those changes mean? How do I apply them to my particular situation as a recipient agency? So we've experienced lots of product issues since May of 2022. Yes, that's how soon we start seeing issues when requisitions are submitted to USDA. So what happened is many of the products that we purchased using the 1.6 million in bonus entitlement that we call CCC that was allocated to our state, they were canceled before we even got off and running. USDA went out to bid, and they had vendors telling them there's no way. We are not going to have enough product to meet the normal needs, plus all this additional product you're asking us to provide in a very short window of time. Because that money, those truckloads had to arrive in our warehouse between July and September per congressional approval of the money being granted. So it caused vendor constraints. They didn't have capacity on the production lines. They didn't have staff. They didn't have the materials needed. So products got canceled. Unfortunately, those issues have not been fully resolved because some of those supply chain issues still exist today. And they continue to affect requisitions that have yet to be purchased by USDA. So I want you to be aware. So please keep in mind that if you get a WebSCM generated notification, watch the old value, look at what it says, and look at the new value. In this example, the apple slices were approved by SP agency. That means we sent it to USDA and they approved it. But they couldn't get it bought, so it went through the contracting process. It got returned by the contracting agency FSA AMS. And what they did is they changed the ship to date. The vendor said, we can't do it when you want it, but we'll shoot for and hope that we can do it by January. So that means that the apple slices were bumped to a later delivery date, and we're still hopeful that they'll get purchased, but we simply do not know. So just watch the WebSCM notifications, because you should have seen that our peaches, our pears, our mixed fruits were canceled in recent days. Applesauce, orange juice, turkey products, oats, oven roasted chicken, refried beans, and pasta have all been affected by cancellations thus far. So please know what products were canceled. All right, let's move to a little silver lining. And we're going to do this quickly because I want to leave room for questions. So USDA has a per meal rate associated with foods that were served in previous school meals. So in March, the rate that you bought your foods on was 0.3960, but it was just adjusted to 43 cents. So that means as a accumulation across the state, we have over $2 million in available entitlement to spend. Okay, that's a lot of money because typically the per meal rate adjustments are a 0.002 to 0.005 per year. We didn't anticipate this type of a rate, but we still have lots of trucks that need to be purchased. So everybody doesn't have, like we just don't get to go willy-nilly to the wind here on how we plan for spending this. So this is the important part. Let's move to the next slide. The state agency has an excess entitlement plan. It's a two-pronged approach. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. What we essentially did is we determined that we are going to allow allocations to DOD again. The survey went out, the survey's been closed. We had a lot of additional funds that were allocated to DOD. That helped many recipient agencies spend down some of their available entitlement. Your Idaho Advisory Council came to the rescue. We asked them some very pointed questions. We said, we have a plan, but we need you guys to help us kind of flesh it out. Will it work? Won't it work? So here are our options. We can open a catalog in WebSCM. It's going to be a very, very limited catalog because while there are many products available on quarterly bid cycle, we have to have these orders consolidated and submitted to USDA by September 16th. That is literally right around the corner. One of the constraints is that the products will not arrive until sometime between January and March. But at this point, we don't want to leave the money on the table if we can offer products in the catalog that you can plan for use. So the Advisory Council made the following recommendations. We've had lots of fruits canceled, so why don't we look at adding strawberry and mixed berry cups, a fruit in the meal pattern, frozen peaches and frozen blueberries, Maybe we could use some more frozen vegetables if we could find some deli meats. We can also requisition raw bulk meats and direct delivery meats and cheeses and potentially pulled pork. So the state agency right now is looking at revising our catalog. We're going to make it narrow, but we need to make sure we meet full truckload requirements. We will try to work with other states if we can to see if other states have entitlement too. The other issue is we have lots of new food service directors. So our advisory council has been willing to help implement this plan. But anyone else listening to this webinar that understands how WebSCM works, we're going to need you to help new food service directors in your area if we're going to be successful at spending down our entitlement. Why is it important to spend down our entitlement? If we don't, and someone in Washington says, oh, states didn't really need all that money anyway, we risk having our rates decline next year. Our per meal rate could actually decline. And I don't want to play into that game. So this is the plan. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, in summary, what does it all mean? Watch for a broadcast email in the coming days. Please, please, please limit your questions to the USDA Foods team at this time. We are working nonstop to make sure that this happens. Please ignore any WebSCM notifications regarding catalog changes because we're going to be changing the catalog. Proactively assess your USDA Foods inventory, know what you have coming so you can plan for what you'll want to order. Forecast based on requisition status reports. So now you'll know how to get those reports. Know your estimated available entitlement, and please be patient. We need for you to be patient with us because we've never done this before either. Okay, and I know that we have a lot of questions.
I was
Yes.
just gonna say, we're at 7 minutes left. Just
Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover the questions real quickly. Okay, I see it. I placed pounds for pork sausage patty and they have been discontinued, but I have all those pounds. What do? We have a replacement pork sausage patty. So you'll still be able to use your pounds. Sorry if it just hasn't been loaded yet into the ordering software system because it takes time. Every time something changes, it takes a lot of time for us to get approval to add something. So we have to get pricing, nutritionals, all that kind of stuff. So it will be available. And I know that Gold Star sent out an email about that. Sorry if this is a repeat. Can you please explain the 60-day dwell time policy? Christy, this doesn't necessarily apply to you. So I'm gonna move past that simply because you are not a recipient agency that has a lot of foods at the warehouse. So thank you for the question, but we're gonna skip past that one. Question from Sundar, if she missed the deadline, sorry. Can she still order? Those are two separate things. If a school district has already allocated entitlement to DOD, they can still use that. They just don't have any additional allocated, and we have to work on deadlines. We are under a crunch. So we issued the survey. The deadline was Monday. If a response wasn't received, we've already submitted our requests for the increases. So the deadline is come and gone. That doesn't mean that we won't open up another opportunity in the future if we find that after the catalog is closed, we still have entitlement available. We may see if we can ask USDA for an exception and another increase. This takes a lot of time and we have limited staff too. So please know that deadlines are critical. Can we have 2 people have access to to the website per location? I think that you mean any of our systems, more than one person can have access. So the answer is yes. When will the recording be available? Again, we have limited staff. Be patient. We'll get the webinar available as soon as possible. Okay, I think I covered those questions. It was relatively quickly.
TJ,
Yes.
can I just mention, could you please explain that the DoD Fresh is Buy American?
Yes. So the DoD Fresh program only produce purchased in America can be offered through DoD. Now, we've had this concern come up before. People say, oh no, I got produce from Grasmick and it was not Buy American. You have a commercial contract with Grasmick, I promise you. So yes, you may have gotten product that was delivered by Grasmick, but it was your commercial product. They cannot deliver you non-US grown produce. And that is sometimes why the DoD catalog is limited, because if we can't get tomatoes in the US, then they can't be in the DoD catalog because we don't have them available, but you can get them commercially. And then you need to make sure you follow that proper procurement and you have all those exemption documentations per procurement requirements and per Buy American. So thank you for pointing that out, Kat. And don't stop with questions. If you have any, what we will be happy to do is go ahead and put them to the USDA Foods team. I do want to just let you know, the USDA Foods team will be at the ISNA Fall Food Expo. We're offering 2 education courses and we're having a 2-hour advisory council meeting because we've got to enact everything that we've just talked about. So please join us and come say hi to us. We want to make sure that we get an early start and get ahead of the curve on the things that are happening this school year. And then the final slide, of course, if you have questions, if you can, if they're not time sensitive, please, feel free to draft an email and then send it when we get past some of these critical phases. But please use the USDA Foods team at sde.idaho.gov email for anything USDA program specific. If it comes to me personally and I'm out of the office for several days, or to Kat personally and she's out of the office, we can't provide prompt customer service. By using that email, everyone, Pamela Murray, who is on the USDA Foods team, Lynda, myself, and Kat get that email. It allows us to provide you with prompt answers. So hopefully all of that helps. Of course, we don't want to miss that we always provide the disclosure statement, but thank you so much for joining us. I know that was a lot to digest, but hopefully you know that your USDA Foods team is here working at a rabbit's pace to try and get things done for you so that you have opportunities to spend your entitlement on foods you need for school year 22-23. Thank you all so much.